Well, welcome everyone to our Elul session on Teshuvah in this season. It's great to be back with all of you and have some new faces as well. Really, really wonderful. As Leah was just saying before we started, this is the time in which we are really focusing on Teshuvah, meaning of Teshuvah, and what gives us the ability to do Teshuvah. And we'll be focusing on this in this shiur. But we'll begin, as we are accustomed to begin, with some tefillot, Mishaberach. As we know, this is just a very, very delicate, dangerous time at the moment, the cusp of an expansion of the war. Very complicated situation. Our hostages are still captive in very cruel captivity. It's a time for tefillah, and so we'll begin with the tefillah for Chaylei Tzva Haganah Yisrael, the soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces. Misha Berach Avosenu Abraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, hu yivarech es Chaylei Tzva Haganah Yisrael v'anshei kochos habitachon, hamdim al mishmar tzenu v'rei Eloheinu, migvul halebanon ba'ad midbar Mitzrayim, min hayam hagadol al labo ha'arava, v'chol makom shehem, v'yabasha ba'avir v'yam. Yitain Adonai es oivenu hakamim alenu nigafim lifnehem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishmor v'yatzel es chayleinu mikol tzara v'tzukah, mikol nego machla, yishlach bracha v'atzlacha b'kol ma'aseh yedihem. Yadber tzanenu tachteim v'yitem v'kesu Yeshua uva teretz tzachon. V'kvim mehem hakasuv ki Adonai Elohechem haholech imachem lelechem lechem im oivechem loshi eschem v'damar amen. And the Mishaberach for the Shvuyim and Shvuyos, our hostages are still held in terrible, cruel captivity. Misha Berach Abasenu Abraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Yosef, Moshe v'Aharon, Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah, David u'Shlomo. Hu yivarech v'yishmor v'yitzores derei tzva Haganah Yisrael, u'shvuyav chatufim, chatufos, v'eskol achinu nesuim b'tzara b'shivya, v'avur shekol ha'kakal hazeh mispalel ba'avuram. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimali rachim yimaleihem, yotziem mechoshech b'tzal moves, musvaseim yinatek, v'mitzukosehem yoshiem, yishbeim mehira lechik b'shpchosehem, yadu l'Adonai chasto v'neflosav l'bnei Adam, kvem behem mikrosh kasuv, uftuye Adonai yeshuvun, uva'or tzion v'rina, v'simchas olam al rosham, sason v'simcha yasigu, nasu yagon ba'anacha, v'amar amen. And the Mishaberach for cholim and cholos, for men and women who are ill among us and in our extended families and friends. And when I pause, you can insert in either out loud or in your mind the names of those or the sense of those you'd like to daven for. Misha Berach Avosenu Abraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Moshe v'Aaron David u'Shlomo, Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah, hu yivarech v'yarpei es hacholim b'cholos. So, V'avur shanu mispalim ba'avuram. V'schar zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimali rachimim aleihem, l'chlimam l'raposam, l'chizicham, l'chiosam. Yishlach lehem mehir refuah shalem l'shamayim, kol ivreim, kol gedeim. Zoch shar chol Yisrael, refuas nefesh, refuas haguf. Hashtar ba'agol v'zman kariv, v'damar amen. Okay. So, Elul, the time of Teshuvah in preparation for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. And we often spend a lot of the time in preparation for doing Teshuvah, thinking about our past mistakes. It's even woven into the tefillot with the viduim that we say, the confessions. And that's understood as an important aspect of the process of Teshuvah, is what's called a cheshbon hanefesh, an accounting of the soul for everything we've done in the past, and the more honest and complete we can be with ourselves, considered uh, you know, a more complete and thorough approach to tshuva. Also, as the Rambam says in Hilchot Tshuva, along with a focus on the past and acknowledging what we need to fix, there's a focus on the future with a commitment not to repeat the mistakes that we've made and try to overcome the habits, the bad ones that we've gotten stuck in. But with all this, actually, the very process of tshuva happens in the present. And there are important aspects of how our consciousness works in the present that are essential to doing the mitzvah of tshuva. And what I thought to focus on here in this session is what it is that present consciousness contributes to the process of tshuva, and what is it actually that empowers our tshuva in the first place? What is it that makes tshuva possible? And for this, we sent out the sources. I hope you got a chance to look at them. If not, certainly look at them afterwards, but we'll go through this now to sort of summarize these texts. I thought to enter into this through a ma'amar, a saying of Rabbi Yitzchak that's brought in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah. And the Gemara Rosh Hashanah has a whole section dealing with Rosh Hashanah and Teshuvah. And here, Rabbi Yitzchak says, 4 things rip up a person's verdict, meaning negative verdict, in the heavenly court: tzedakah, crying out in prayer, changing one's name, and changing one's actions. Well, changing one's actions, which should seem fairly obvious, but it's important for us to remember that changing our actions is not just in the not making the same mistakes that we made before only, and not only in grandstand actions, but even in the most basic everyday encounters, changing one's actions. Are we being respectful of others? Are we treating other people nicely? When we speak to another person, are we berating them? Are we doing it in a harsh and kind of hectoring way, or are we giving the person kavod, respect, and giving a sense of in our interpersonal relationships, just the simplest things, but these are the most important things, to not have a sense of entitlement, to not put ourselves on others, but to treat others with respect. That's a way of a very practical thing we can do in terms of changing our actions. And this is when the Rambam talks about this, he's talking not just about the mistakes we've made, but all of our actions, as he says, changing everything in the way we behave, and particularly the way that we interact with others. And then changing one's name. And it gives the example of Sarai, Abraham's wife. Her name changed to Sarah. And with that name change, she was able to have, to conceive, whereas before that she wasn't. Now, it's not because she was sinning or doing any averot prior to that she was not able to conceive. That's not the issue. All that Rabbi Yitzchak is trying to say is that a change of name can change a lot of things in one's life. Okay, but wait a second. What does it mean to change your name? And that's a fairly, for most of us, that would be a fairly drastic thing to do in the midst of all of our obligations. You have to change all your credit cards. Change your passports, all of your personal stuff. Changing even changing a Hebrew name or adding a Hebrew name is not something to be done lightly. So what does Rabbi Yitzchak mean here? The Rambam talks about this in Mishnah Torah in his Hilchot Teshuvah, and he says changing one's name is as if to say, I am another person, and I am no longer that person who did those deeds. And that's supposed to be conducive to Teshuvah. Well, I mean, this could be interpreted actually as rather inauthentic and irresponsible. In other words, a person did something wrong. Now he's going to change his name and say, I'm not that person. I'm off the hook. I'm not responsible for that action of that person. I'm a different person now. Is that what the Rambam means? Is that what Rabbi Yitzchak means? Or are they getting across something else about what it means to change, what it means to change ourselves? This is raises the question of identity at any time. What is our identity based on? When we're looking in the process of Teshuvah, looking at the past, we consider it our past. These are our experiences. These are our actions that we remember, in the past. And so we build our identity based on our accumulating past. And yet, in building our identity, are we really, is that an accurate way of living in the present? Sometimes we can build an identity so rigidly that we get stuck on that identity. And we lack a certain flexibility in working with our habits of mind, our narratives, all of the things that maintain a kind of static and rigid identity. Is perhaps the Rambam and Rabbi Yitzchak getting across something about let's call it the flexible or malleable nature of identity. Let's work with this. So, in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah, deals with the issue of heavenly judgment. We learned that it's not just that on Rosh Hashanah, as we understand it in the Hebrew calendar, that the world is judged, but at 4 times of the year the world is judged: Pesach, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, and Sukkot. And judged for these different themes. But it's not only that the world is judged, the grand judgment on Rosh Hashanah, and also at the Yomim Tovim, but as the Gemara continues the discussion, Rabbi Yossi says, mankind is judged every day. And he quotes a verse from Eov, and you consider a human being every morning. Rabbi Natan takes it further. It says, mankind is judged at every moment. As it says, every minute you examine him. Okay, there's 2 different words for that are used here for judging. The verse, it's actually one verse that they're both quoting. One, Rabbi Yossi is quoting the beginning of the verse, Rabbi Natan the end of the verse. Tifkidenu labkarim, that you are, that you are thinking, God is thinking of every human being in a sense of considering every human being every morning. Rabbi Natan says that that you're examining, judging in the sense of examining every person every moment, not just every morning, but every moment. Well, if we're being judged every moment or every day, not just on Rosh Hashanah, and not just at 4 times a year, but that must mean that at every moment, and it's so, that we are making decisions, acting in certain ways, or thinking, speaking, acting in certain ways that are subject to judgment. In other words, we are changing at every moment in the way that we think, speak, act, and heaven, so to speak, God is keeping up with us, according to Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Natan, and examining what we do at every moment. So it's not just that there's a single time of judgment, but every moment change is happening. Every moment action is happening. And this itself becomes a hint for us as to what it is that empowers Teshuvah. So it brought a passage that we've looked at, a similar passage, a parallel passage to this in some sessions in the past. This is from Eitz Chaim, the Chaim Vital, on the Torah of the Arizal. And you can get into the Kabbalistic aspects of it. At the beginning of the paragraph, he says that, the Sfirot are changing, the Sfirot of Igulim, the Sfirot of Or Yashar, the surrounding light, the inner lights, constant reconfigurations of the Sfirot at every moment. The Sfirot themselves are changing, and their configurations and balances are changing at every moment. And then not only that, but each and every moment the worlds change. And this moment does not resemble that moment. So at every level, from the inner structure of reality to the reality that we experience, the worlds, and then this world itself is in constant change. I mean, we sense as if there's some kind of stability here around us, but we know that our planet is spinning around. It's it's going around the sun, and the solar system is flying through the galaxy. The galaxies are flying, and then not just on the macro level, but on the micro levels. We know that from quantum mechanics that and from quantum field theory that this reality that we're experiencing, this is really shimmering energy packaged into mass and into matter. It's shimmering energy. It's changing all the time, and everywhere in between. From the atomic level up to levels of cells and organisms, changing all the time. Life changing all the time. And this is Rabbi Chaim Vital is saying here: if you open the eyes of your intellect to get this, you don't have sufficient bandwidth in the heart of a human being to comprehend all of this. How much change is going on from highest macro levels to most intimate micro levels and everything in between. And so this is a core vision of the Arizal. This notion of total constant change going on, and this gives us a sense, begins to give us a sense of what makes Teshuvah possible. Because what we're looking to do in Teshuvah, in call it repentance, but it's return to Hashem, is change. We're trying to change course from negative behaviors and negative habits and mistakes that we made. We're looking for the possibility of change. I mean, that's what Teshuvah is about. And what's most important to realize, and what Rabbi Chaim Vital is telling us, is that all of reality is built on change. It's changing all the time. Sartre, in Being in Nothingness, has a statement. He says, we think that what is so mysterious about the world is change. He says, no, change is the rule of reality. What is mysterious is why there's any stability at all in the midst of this change. What is it that creates a sense of stable identity from moment to moment to moment when we know that from the inside, everything is furiously changing all the time. But it's that change that also empowers the possibility of our own change, our own teshuvah. And this is one of the issues that comes across from the Sfat Emet, author of Gor, the Ger Rebbe, in a very beautiful ma'amar, a Devar Torah of his for Rosh Hashanah. And let's go through this one carefully because this gives us a real insight into what we're trying to accomplish. It says, the life we seek on Rosh Hashanah is because on Rosh Hashanah, mankind was created. Now, this is it's discussion in the Gemara as to when human being was created. According to Rabbi Eliezer, the world was created, human being was created in Tishrei on Rosh Hashanah. According to Rabbi Yeshua, in Nisan. We actually sort of hold both of them together. It's both of them are giving us insight into the significance of these times. But Rosh Hashanah, part of the Nesach Tefillah, the text of the liturgy of Tefillah and the Machzor is Hayom Harat Olam. This is the birthday of the world, Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, though, technically, the way that Chazal understand it, it's not the first day of creation, it's the first day of mankind. Rosh Hashanah, mankind was created. And we'll see what the Ger Rebbe means by this. Mankind is the essence of life. And all the life in the world is by means of mankind. Now, that's a pretty ambitious statement, but let's see what he means. He quotes a beautiful passage from Nehemiah, the Tanakh, which concludes that it's Hashem that Nehemiah says to Hashem, "V'ata mechayeh et kulam." You enliven all beings. God grants life to all beings. We'll see how deeply this is understood in Kabbalah and Chassidut. God grants life to all beings. So Ger Rebbe backs up to understand what this means. And he brings the well-known, at least I think well-known to most of us, the theory of the Arizal, that this world was created by Ein Sof, God the Infinite, through a first act of tzimtzum, of contraction, tzimtzum. The entire creation of the work of the beginning is contraction of divinity enclosed in nature. So God originally, Ein Sof, is kavod, as the Rebbe says, that there's nothing but the kavod Hashem, the full glory of Hashem, no existence of anything else. Only by contraction, whatever that means, and we'll get deeply into the technicalities of that, needed for our purpose right now, maybe another time. Only by contraction of God's infinite light did the possibility of existence come into being, and for other creatures to be created, to appear. And this through a process, those of you are familiar with the process of atzilut, of emanation. In other words, God is Ein Sof, the infinite, in some sense contracts or hides his infinite presence. And then within that hiddenness, re-injects his shefa, his own being, in a process called atzilut, or emanation. So it's God's self pouring his or Ein Sof, the light of Ein Sof, back into creation in a graded way, in a step-by-step way, step down, 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 from highest sphere realms to angelic realms, to the realms of various creatures in the worlds and in our world. Then the more that these creation of creatures extended, this is an aspect of death. For every descent and lowering is called death. Now, this is a technical description from the Torah of the Arizal, from Eitz Chaim. I mentioned the passage. If you're interested here, it's Eitz Chaim, chapter 9, sections 1 through 8, and 10 through 1 through, chapter 10, 8 through 1 through 5. It's in Eitz Chaim. The point that he's making here, and just in the most basic sense, all of reality is understood as an unfolding and issuing from God's self through emanation. And in some sense, the process of emanation is a process of creation through distancing, so to speak, from the source, from God. So in other words, God's from Ein Sof is pouring God's light, God's consciousness, God's, some aspect of God back into reality, into this world, this empty world, and those things that are closest in the process of, nearest in the process of emanation are considered more spiritually exalted. Those that are further down the line from the angelic world to the, from the sphere world, the angelic world, and down into the world of physical creatures, become the lower and lower you get. Each stage lower is called by the Arizal a death. He has a reason for that. It's not a a biological death, but it's a dying. It's a distancing from God. But after that, human being was created. At the very end of the process, the sixth day, the end of the sixth day of creation, it says, "V'yipach b'apav nishmat chayim," and God blew into human nostrils the soul of life, nishmat chayim, and the human became a nefesh chaya, a living soul, a nefesh chaya. Now here the Rabbi said, meaning that he is the instrument that returns and draws life from the life of the world, life of life, to the work of creation. What's going on here, and he's compressed this a bit, just to get this across. I just add this just before the session, so you don't have that in your text, but you can add it if you wish. So the verse that he just quoted is that God created the Adam, the human being, dirt from the earth, and he blew into his nostrils the nishmat chayim, the breath of life, let's call it that, soul of life. Vahi Adam lenefesh chaya, and the human being became a nefesh chaya, a living nefesh. Okay. Now, nefesh refers to is the term for life consciousness in the body. Neshama is our higher consciousness. Nefesh is life consciousness in physical, in the body, embodied state. Now what the Ger Rebbe is doing here is Vahi Adam lenefesh chaya. The Kabbalists and the Hasidic Rebbe's have a very profound read of this. We've seen this phrase nefesh chaya before in the Torah. Okay, here we're only chapter 2 of the Breshit, but in chapter 1, verse 24, it's talking about the beginning of the sixth day of creation. This is the day of the creation of domestic animals, wild animals, on terrestrial animals and human beings. And it says, "Vayomer Elokim totzea aretz nefesh chaya lemina, behema v'remes v'chayis aretz lemina vayikeh." And God said, "Let the earth bring forth nefesh chaya lemina, according to its species." Now, a lot of the commentators, the earlier commentators, take this as a kind of general statement. God brings forth the soul of life, nefesh chaya, the soul of life, according to its kind, its species, and then God specifies, domestic animals, creeping, crawling things, and wild animals. So nefesh chaya becomes it's the general statement and then the particulars. The Kabbalists and the Hasidic rabbis read this, well, we later hear that the Adam was created as a nefesh chaya in the second creation story of Adam and Chava. And that's what's being referred to here. So the way this verse now is read is, let me get this for you here. And God said, let the earth bring forth a living soul according to his kind. That is to say, the human soul, which now becomes the oversoul that allows the creation of domestic animals, creeping creatures, and wild animals of the earth. So, in other words, the way this is understood, that this in the sixth day, there was a unique creation of a creature that would encompass all living beings and be the source of life for all living beings, which are then specified in their various species. And that unique creature is the human being, the living soul. I hope I get this across. I mean, it's these two verses that are being interpreted here, and that's what the Sfat Emet is talking about here, meaning that the human being became a living soul, nefesh chaya, becoming the instrument that returns and draws life from the life of life, who is the life of life, we'll see in a moment, to all the work of creation. So the notion is here, and this is something that fits in also with philosophic thought, even with modern philosophic thought, in terms of the role of human consciousness in reality. The human being, with the kind of consciousness that we have, is kind of the ma'asef kol hamachanot. We are the gatherers of all of the encampments of all of reality that has come before us. No other creature does that. In our experience, in this reality we live in. Rilke, in Rilke's Duino Elegies, I think in the 8th Elegy, talks about how all animals just live their lives going forward, doing what they do. Only a human being, and for this, Rilke is actually complaining about this, whereas the Sfas Emes is saying that this is our greatness. Rilke's thing is only we live our lives backwards, just sort of backing into reality, rather than just acting and going forwards. But what the Sfas Emes is saying is that no, we as human beings, with our consciousness, embrace all of reality as a world, and in this way, we are the caretakers of all of reality, of this world. Adam and Chava were created la'avda l'shamra, to work and to serve, right? To serve and to guard the world, and we are, and not just in terms of our, what we actually accomplish in individual actions, but in our consciousness itself, and in our connecting all of reality to the life of life, we become the ones that elevate all creatures to their source. And this, says the Rebbe, is the light that descends on Rosh Hashanah, because this is the Rosh Hashanah is the anniversary, the yearly anniversary of creation of mankind, of the kind of consciousness that we have. And we have the ability on Rosh Hashanah to reconnect with our source, the source of life, renewal from the root of life, not only for us, but for the whole world. That's the vision. It's a vast vision. And so what is the meaning of we draw life from the life of life, to all creatures, draw life from the life of life to the work of work of creation. Well, who's the life of life? That's God. We say this in brachot, that we say, for instance, the blessing after food. Say, Baruch atah Hashem, borei nefashot rabot b'chesronan, v'kol ma shebara l'chayot b'hem nefesh kol chai, baruch chei ha'olamim. Blessed be the life of the worlds. And Maimonides talks about this in Yesodei HaTorah. This phrase, genitive construct, the life of the worlds. God is integrally the life of the worlds. Our life is from, so to speak, God's life. God is not just that God, somewhere out wherever God is, creates life and enlivens other beings with life. No, God is the inner life of all beings in the most intimate, interior, profound way. We call God Chei Olamim, life of the worlds. We say this also in the Tehillim that we say during for Ashkenazim that say during Elul the David Hashem Ori Bishi Mimi Ira Hashem Ma'oz Chayai Mimi Efchad. God is the power of my life. Of whom should I be afraid? So what we're connecting with on Rosh Hashanah, the source of our life, is with God, the source of our life. God, who is the source of our life, not apart from it, but God is sourcing our life at every moment. Now, how do we connect with this? This is not obvious all the time. In fact, most of the time it's not obvious at all. And this is what Rosh Hashanah itself is about. It's called a Keser Liyom Chagenu, the concealment of our day, the day of our festival. Yom Rosh Hashanah is a day of concealment. It's because it's the new moon day, whereas most other festival days are around the full moon. But it's a new moon day, and there is a concealment of this reality that God is the life of the world. Chei Olamim. How do we connect with this? So I brought two sources, which you could look at in more detail yourselves on your own, but let me just summarize. Pinchas of Koretz brings a core Torah from the Arizal also. Then on Rosh Hashanah, the world and the Torah and all souls are renewed through sleep. Very interesting read. The term that Reb Chaim Vital uses in Eitz Chaim from the Arizal is dormita, deep sleep. It's actually Latin. Like in French, dormez-vous, right? Are you sleeping? The dormita, Rosh Hashanah, and actually the night of Rosh Hashanah is not just like any other night. It is the night of deep, deep sleep for all of the world, all of reality. Now, why sleep? And so the Pinchas of Koretz gives our insight. It's sleep that refreshes us. And sleep is a great mystery. We to some extent, take it for granted, except those of us who are insomniacs. But sleep is a great mystery. It's a moment in which we release ourselves, and that really does take a deep sense of trust. We let go of everything. And in letting go, in that deep process, we become refreshed in a physical sense, also in an emotional sense. Sometimes we let go of the things of the past day and then can deal with the new day with a new attitude and outlook. And so in sleep, we have an experience of a profound letting go. A letting go of the past day, a letting go of the past, a letting go of our identities, a letting go of everything we think we are, of all our narratives, of all of our everything, letting it go. And the more that we can let all of this go, the more profound our renewal can be. He says, and when one sleeps and becomes nothing, as if insignificant, every night you're delivering yourself to Ein Sof, God the Infinite. And you're God the Infinite, God who's Chei Olamim, life of the worlds, is renewing you with God's life. And you become like a new creature. And therefore on Rosh Hashanah, this is the cosmic day of deep sleep, which ushers in the day of Rosh Hashanah for deep renewal. So according to Rabbi Pinchas of Koretz, the way to realize the deep change that is possible on Rosh Hashanah, to connect with the possibility of change, to connect with life that comes from Shem Ein Sof, God's self, which empowers the possibility of change, because life is all about change. This comes through letting go of all the stiff, static narratives and habits that we've got caught up into, letting it go, even letting it go of the more rigid aspects of our identity, to allow the possibility of change, as it were, as if a deep sleep. This is also echoed by Rav Kook in a profound passage in Orot HaKodesh, and I'll just summarize it very briefly. The source of the spiritual waves. Let's talk about spirituality comes in waves. It's not always just a straight ahead process. And that the fact that there are ups and downs, and the individual soul in the world is from an inner struggle. Everything exerts itself to adjust to the shefa, the efflux of the light of Ein Sof. That is a really extraordinary, a really profound take. We are at all times, whether we know it or not, trying to adjust to the absolute manifest reality of Ein Sof, which we are not able to grasp. And so he says there are times that we have spiritual uplift and everything just, we're in the flow and everything seems to be expansive and makes sense and we're getting it. And then that's immediately followed often by kind of dark night of the soul, with where all of a sudden we realize what are we? We're in a world that is, full of darkness, full of cruelty, full of violence, full of bad people, full of bad things. We ourselves disappoint ourselves in so many ways. And then, but from out of that letting go, so it's not a sleep for Rav Kook, it's a kind of emotional drop. We nonetheless let our identities, sort of loosen our identities. And again, from that nothingness comes, once again, the re-empowerment from Ein Sof in Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. And we go through this process. And what seems to be a negative aspect of this, the dark night of the soul that comes after a great spiritual illumination, it was actually very important. It's the way in which we clear ourselves out emotionally for a greater expansion afterwards. So don't give up in those periods. Go through it. Let it help us loosen up, our sense of, any rigidities in our identity, and re-experience the possibility of change. Okay, so these are the sources that I wanted to share with you. Now let's do a meditation, brief meditation to experience this. Many of the meditations that we've been doing over the years together are what we call return to the source meditations. These are probably the most essential of the Kabbalistic meditations, along with the Yichudim of the Arizal, the unifications. But the most classic meditation practices, and we've been doing them, involve some kind of return to the source of the soul. And we've, so we go through Sfirot to do that, or we go through, various types of meditation that that the tradition gives us. But what I would like to do with us, just in this session, very simple. We're going to do a clearing meditation, just hashkata. But in the course of it, we're not going to be trying, let me suggest, not trying to quiet our minds to be totally quiet and have nothing going on and just be quiet. Actually, let's quiet down to appreciate how much is going on in us and around us. The life that is beating within us, the energy that is happening within us, all of the phenomena that are happening in us and around us, which are phenomena of what all of these Torah that we've been talking about, these very Torah we've been talking about, we are immersed in change. We are immersed in life. Change is possible. Teshuvah is empowered at every moment because we can change. So here's what I suggest for the meditation. It's hashkata, so we sit quietly, eyes closed, um, breathing normally, uh, paying attention, giving sort of, we want to have global attention to everything that's happening around us and in us. So we're breathing. That's happening. That's part of our lives. And all aspects of the breathing. It's not just the inhale and the exhale, but the process of inhaling, the process of exhaling is the is life. As we get more quiet, our heartbeat. We're not doing it. That's the gift of life. God is beating our hearts here. We're not doing it. It's a gift from God at every moment. With all the sensations that we have around us, including our eyes are closed. But when your eyes are closed, you see those flashing lights. It's the on the retina. That the lights are so flashing. So be aware of that. Realize that you're shimmering, you're sparkling. And at even this most core level, our our cells, our everything, our metabolism is happening. Our thoughts, so typically in Hashkata, we try to quiet our thoughts. Don't worry about that. Let your thoughts run and realize, whoa, our thoughts are happening, our minds are happening. And even when we seem to be quiet, consciousness is flowing. Everything is flowing, everything is changing. And in the process of this, see if you can get to a sense of how effortless this is, how much a gift this is, how we are empowered at every moment truly with life, with the possibility of change, with the possibility of Teshuvah. Okay, that's the meditation we'll do. At your own pace, in your own way. It'll be about 12 to 15 minutes. You'll hear I'll sing a little nigun at the end, at the end of the meditation. Ezrat Hashem. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ana. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Elna. Sana. Tzlachna. Mechana. Ay, 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 ay. Ah, Hamana. Ah, Rachemna. Ay, 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 ay. Ah, Caperna. Ah, Kevosh Chet Ve'avon. We don't have to change our names to realize we are not the person right now that we were before. We never are. We're changing all the time. And this is a wonderful, wonderful thing. This is the basis of Teshuvah, that we're empowered at every moment to change. And with this awareness, we can go forth, uh, to do good. We're given this gift of life, and to make it as we have been, and to continue to make it a good life. Be'ezrat Hashem. So this comes to now. We come to the point of our discussion period. We open up